We are
That's the idea.
live
Cool.
now.
Great. Let me post it.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Let's go. So, hello, everyone.
Hello.
Join us, wherever you are in the world. It's hard to say good night or I never know. But good afternoon anyway, you know.
Yeah.
So today we're gonna have Ian and Nick from I'm already introduced everyone, but from Ghana. So we're gonna play the tutorial first, and we're gonna introduce properly everyone before the chat. Give me 1 second just to share the screen. So you guys should be looking. And
Hey!
nice. Cool. And way back. Nice work, guys. Thank you. Before anything, thank you for you guys joining us. So we have Ian and Nick from Ghana. So let's start asking what everyone is drinking. What you drinking, Ian?
Labatt Blue Light.
Nice.
Most beers evaporate in my house's atmosphere before they even touch. So I'm out of beer and have a glass of whiskey from a local whiskey distillery called
Nice.
Motor City Gas.
Wow, is that in case the questions get too intense?
Yeah, yeah, I can keep pouring.
I've got some beer called Tea Party. Not quite sure what it is, but it's a cream ale with green tea apparently. So totally healthy.
I'm
What
just
you, Thiago?
glass of wine. I don't drink beer. I tried so many times when I went.
Large glass of wine.
The show takes a little bit longer.
It's a full cup.
Can
you say glass of wine if it's a cup of wine?
Yeah.
We can say it's half pint of wine. It's just so I
drink
feel
wine
part
like beer.
Yeah, I drink wine like beer. I don't drink beer, but I drink wine like beer. Cool.
So when you're at university, do you do like wine bongs instead of beer bongs?
Yeah.
You play wine pool. I mean, what happened, man?
What did I drink on the university?
Slap the bag.
I
You guys
don't
know
think
that?
I was drinking in the university in the beginning.
Good
I stopped
for
drinking
you.
for
That takes
few,
a lot of
few
restraint.
years. Yeah, I stopped drinking for a few years and came back late.
Oh, on one of the comments on the YouTube channel so far is that Nick looks like he's in a sauna.
It's the #1 like icebreaker on every conference call now.
Two comments.
It's excruciatingly hot in here. These are hot bricks.
That's where the like the little oven is. Fresh wood sauna.
Yeah, we just happened
Nice.
to redo our basement, and I had no idea that when I chose this wall, it would be my background for all my video conference calls for the next couple months.
Yeah, I think we're gonna need to rethink life for the future now. You know, all
Yeah.
decisions gonna really need to change with coronavirus. Think if we get a new pandemic, you know, how you gonna decorate houses and we've been talking like we just said before, you know, about New York or like small places when you don't have to walk. And I've got a little daughter, 3.5 years, and me and my wife been talking. You know, we need a house for the next pandemic. You know, a flat's not enough. You know, so we need to prepare
Yeah.
ourselves.
Like a little hobbit house or something, somewhere out in New Zealand.
Yeah. You should have come up north, Thiago. You should have come to the north of England. Told you.
Yeah, but it's a bit cold there. No? You're gonna have rain for the next 7 days. No, I still have a few days of sun.
That is true. As soon as what happened was I bought barbecue stuff. So as soon as you buy barbecue stuff, everything gets jinxed, and now it's rain for the next 7 days apparently. So
You can barbecue in the rain.
well, we got a garage. We'll just set it up in the garage. It's all good.
Yeah. Cool. So should we? Someone said just.
Oh yeah, I fixed it.
Yeah. So let's start talking a little bit of the situation with coronavirus, just to give a little bit overall how you guys, you know, quoting with Dan, if you guys being affected. So could you guys tell us in general how you guys being affected work-wise? Is you guys feeling like the industry is low down for you guys, or you still have the same amount of work, or because people can't film, you know, you guys getting more work? So what is this situation with Gunnar?
I think you could break it down to like two distinct categories. One is like the work and like the actual jobs that are coming in, and then the other one is just like a pure like emotional workload too. And I think work-wise, we haven't really been affected too much. Like people haven't stopped knocking on the door. Deadlines have still been set. We've been still all jamming. We have a studio. How many people are we at now? Ian, 11?
No.
I always lose track
10,
now.
9 or 10.
Yeah, 9 or 10. They're people, not numbers.
Name them.
And we've all been very busy since this whole thing has happened, but I think emotionally it's just been another battle. I think on a day-to-day basis, everybody is like feeling this tremendous turmoil, and it makes it really hard to be in a creative position where you have to like come up with something goofy or come up with something, you know, that's really refined when you have like all these thoughts going through your head. So I think we're fighting two different battles. One is a little easier, and that's the work one right now.
Yeah, we've not lost, but Gunnar was kind of like a really collaborative room. You know, everyone was bouncing off ideas all the time. If there was like a song on, we'd all kind of like ad-lib this like fake story to the song that the song was making us think, and everyone like jumps in, and it's very like
it's quite like Sesame Street.
Yeah, it's like listening to people play Dungeons and Dragons, but like we're doing it while we work. You know, you're just kind of like, oh, this sounds like someone will come up with a character's voice because someone's playing like a classical music song. Nick will start doing a Morgan Freeman impression, and then everyone's kind of jumping in and throwing like all these goofy scenarios and stuff. And a lot of our work comes out of that little moment where we're like, oh, that's hilarious. Actually, put that aside. Let's make a little Instagram post. Or like, I think that for me is like the thing I've super missed at this point, where I'm like, oh, I miss the daily banter in the studio. It was really special. And now it's like calls.
Yeah, it doesn't really come across as the same, does it, on a Zoom call when you're in the room with somebody, just like, you know, having a laugh, chatting, you know, that kind of side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How are you guys managing? You guys talking about, like you said, you know, like a lot of Zoom calls. You know, I think for me, coming from the creative side, it's taking a lot more time in managing the team as well. You know, like sitting together and giving feedback. So not being struggling much, but it's being a lot more time consuming, like when you can just sit with someone next to you, have a chat, come up with ideas, and then now you need to jump on a call, or you need to bring things, and sketch on top and brief people. It takes a lot more time. And you guys being busy, I can imagine that makes it a little bit more difficult for you too, especially not being in the same room as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it's the happenstance that used to be around where everyone's monitors were kind of all, we all just work in a pit, me and Ian included. We all just kind of work together in this little tight area where you can just kind of turn around and ask questions and talk. And they can see what's on yours, and everyone can kind of have an idea of where everyone's like moving towards, certain goals. And sometimes that's hard to do when you're just checking in once or twice a day. Direction's already kind of difficult enough, but when it's going through the translation of a video call or an email or a Slack, it gets lost in translation, and then it could send someone down the wrong path for an entire day, and you don't find out.
Yeah. We keep losing your audio. We keep losing your audio, Nick.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
Sorry. Hold on. I'll let
It's that sauna wall.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's talking. Yeah, I just you can kind of, the way you have to do remote work is you're like, all right, here's what we're gonna do today. Here's where we're gonna go. Like, you got this part, you got this part, you got this part. Okay, break, and everyone goes off. And it used to kind of be like Nick and I always have worked in the pit with everyone else. And so you used to just be like doing your own part of whatever, and then just lean over and be like, oh, yeah, cool. Or like, oh, client totally said that was going to be not facing that way, or some, you know what I mean? Just like those little comments like that. And now it's like, sometimes we get, everyone kind of throws their stuff back in dailies or whatever it is at the end of the day. And you're like, oh, did I not explain that? Maybe did I tell you? And so it's like, it can be defeating when you're like, I'm sorry, you just lost a day at work. I don't know what happened. Maybe I didn't explain it out. We got to reposition. And so that stuff can be kind of draining at times for us. But I think we're all safe and everyone's working. So
yeah, and luckily, we're a really tight knit group, and we all have a very common vision and goal for a lot of things. We're all usually very much on the same page. So it's been nice because everybody going remote, actually, it was just kind of a continuation of exactly where it was. It was just under different circumstances. So it hasn't been terrible.
Have you found it's affected your workflow in terms of, I guess if it's VFX rendering can be quite tricky and all that kind of side of things. How have you adapted your workflow to cater for everybody being remote?
That's a good question. We're actually in the middle of a 3D job right now, and it's testing our limits on that because we've never really had much of a pipeline set in stone. We've just never really been involved with really effects heavy or 3D heavy jobs. Blend was probably the biggest 3D piece from beginning to end that we've ever done. And where that comes more natural to us is that we don't tend to crank a lot of settings up and make very heavy things. We work in a pretty optimized way, so working together has been pretty fluid. It's just it's the pipeline, it's the missing the link of being able to turn around and talk to each other that's actually been the hardest thing to deal with in the 3D realm. Because in 3D you can, more D's more problems is what we say. It's you can go down a path really far down the wrong way. More D's, more problems.
It's more difficult to change as well. But yeah,
exactly.
More D's, more problems.
Yep, harder to reverse changes. Sometimes you build changes that are compounding on other things that were set up from the beginning in a not optimized way, and that typically gets talked out in a studio environment. But remotely, it's been a little bit more difficult.
So have you found in one way or another it's kind of affected the output in terms of, I guess not in terms of quality, I think the quality is probably still there, but I guess it's just, I don't know, in personality maybe is a little bit different to what it would have been if you were all in the studio together?
I wouldn't think so. I think Ian, you would probably agree with that. We're all pretty much in line with our studio attitude is very shared by everybody. So that hasn't suffered at all.
I think our studio is a direct representation of the people that work there. We still have those people.
Yep.
And also, just thinking now with everyone working from home, do you guys see, that affecting your work in the future? If you guys planning, because you guys in Detroit, so I assume like location for you guys always work for different places as well. So location wasn't a problem for you in the beginning, and I think that just maybe prove for you guys, you can keep pushing with people working from home or a different location. Like if you're using a lot of freelancers, or you guys always use the guys more like in the studio. So sorry, just to remind my question, how do you guys feel, work with everyone from home? Like, do you guys work a lot freelancers that is not in the studio? Do you feel that affect much, or you think you guys always work with that on the pass?
Yeah, it hasn't changed our client relationships. I think it's changed our artist relationships. Like, you know what I mean? We would always, our clients have we don't have any clients here, so like clients have always been this, but you'd have like maybe one or two of these types of calls a day, and that's about it. And the rest of the time we're working as like our little group, our little family, as we call it. We would work a lot of times with remote freelancers, and I would say probably about half the time we would fly them out for the first week, just because I feel like there's like a little bonding experience in that first week.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We also get to show them like our city, which we're super like, oh, there's this and there's that, and like it's kind of like a nice, so like that part's missing, but we've built that relationship with so many freelancers where they've been out here for a week or two with us, they go back to wherever they live, and so when we start working with them again, it's like really easy to pick back up because there's that like kinship that happened in that week or those 2 weeks. So
which you're not allowed to talk about, right?
What?
Like what happens in that week you can't talk about to anybody
else.
No,
yeah, no, it's awesome in that week. I think it's like that's the week where you're trying to get on the same page with the project, especially if you're doing something that's like something that's going to be 2 months of work. A lot of times that first week of just like, what are we making? If you can get all that energy in the room,
figuring out how people work as well, and their personality, and if it fits in with the teams, that's very valuable, I think, and especially now going forward where everyone's remote as well. Yeah,
that's how people have actually moved out here to keep working with us too. Like they come out for a couple of weeks, they work on a project, and they're like, actually, I really like being in the studio. And then, that's kind of how we've hired people and got them to move out here.
I was going to ask that later on. Like being based in Detroit, is it difficult to find people to come to relocate from wherever to Detroit? So obviously, a lot of animation companies and whatever are based East Coast, West Coast, or wherever. But have you found it quite easy to tempt people to Detroit?
50-50.
Yeah, Detroit kind of has like a stigma to it that like only coming here and seeing it for yourself can you get over it. Like a lot of potential interns that we've had, have been like, oh, I'm super interested, and then they'll talk to their parents and like, don't go there, you'll die. It's like, but then like we'll have some that come here and they're like, I thought I was gonna die when I came here, and it's actually awesome.
I survived Detroit T-shirt.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Because
there is a T-shirt that says "Say nice things about Detroit," and that you can literally buy that on your way out of here. I feel like that's more the vibe. You're like, stop saying bad stuff about this place.
Yeah. But it's like, I think part of it is like the studio environment and like just a little creative kind of hub that we're a part of right now in this one particular building. It has like a really magnetic energy to it right now, mostly because we're all just artists and we just want to make cool stuff, and we don't want to just be locked to a location of where we're at. We want to have reach into all these different kinds of clients, solve all kinds of different problems, and that like a friend of ours described it as kind of forming a gravity well. And I always thought that was a really elegant way of portraying it, because it's like the stronger you make the gravity well, the easier it is for things to and people to get sucked into it and inform and make it even stronger, which has been really cool to watch. Like at first, impossible to get people to be out here. Everyone was just like, "Why are you in Detroit? Why are you in Detroit?" And then, you know, we stuck to our guns, no pun intended. There may be a pun intended, but we really we had like a
down.
Yeah. We had our sights set on like higher quality creative work because that was just what was satisfying for us. And when you start setting a bar that high, people start jumping in with you and bringing their best. And that seems to compound things and it forms that gravity well even stronger. So now, you know, now people are like, can I move to Detroit and hang out with you guys? You're like, sure, who are you?
I guess I see you guys like as if, you know, like you're dipping the toe in the water. And then when you're doing well, it's like, oh yeah, we'll just all dive right in. It's all safe. The water's safe.
Yeah, it's like one of those standing belly flops after the toes go in.
So I guess,
yeah.
So I guess do you think, I guess nowadays location probably doesn't really matter as much anymore, but in a kind of a post-corona creative environment, I guess location, you can be wherever.
Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah, I feel like there's something about the main takeaway on we do a stand-up every morning where we all talk, the whole studio just kind of bullshits for 30 minutes. And the number one takeaway out of most days is, I miss you guys. Like everyone still wants to be back at the office a little bit, and that way of like that energy that's there. And it's not like, to kind of expand on what Nick was saying about the building, it's not just us in that space. We rent, like Gunner rents a space in an old school, and we have like the old home ec room, but there's other classrooms and there's other freelance artists in other classrooms, and there's we started another studio, Hobbs, that's in another one. And there's painters and illustrators and graphic designers, and there's like a whole kind of community in that building. And so that energy is like really what's magnetic, and definitely you can feel it weighing on everyone, being like, I miss like being able to walk over and see what like our friend Joel was up to, because he'd just be painting, you know, like it was all these kind of things were happening all around you and you're just nestled into it. That's been tough. So,
Thiago, are you going to move Cookie to Detroit then?
I was thinking, I just was looking at the price of the flight, but it's still be expensive at the moment. Yeah, I don't mind the location as well. You know, for me, I think it's I probably more in the same mind of you guys. You know, I miss a lot the studio. I miss the contact with people. I think that's for me, no matter where you are. But I always was a little bit, I'm not gonna say against work with freelancers abroad, but I always prefer work with people in the studio just because of the energy you guys talking, and it's easy to direct the project and for the producer manage the project as well, especially if you had a lot of freelancers everywhere. It start making really difficult. But I'm quite like, I could be anywhere in the world if I had enough people, you know, a small studio with people coming at least, you know, so you can share the information. I think it's really important, and that fun process, you know, in the studio we like play football and things like that, and it just get the team together as well.
I have a weird pipe dream of like having that studio environment, but like on a ship that like sails around the world all the time. So it's just like you just have a creative hub and network that's self-sustaining on itself, but it just is always mobile and moving, because it's like what it's really taught us is that the studio environment can be anywhere. Like, why not have a studio on top of a volcano? I don't know, it doesn't matter. Like,
volcano is probably not the best place, but you know,
dormant volcano.
All right, if you're talking like James Bond's secret lair, then
I do want to see lava. Like, I usually want to see lava, so I'd roll the dice.
Maybe a cool river of lava.
Yeah.
I did a project years ago with a company called Hammer and Tongs, based in London, and they had quite a nice studio, which is on it was on a boat, on a narrow boat on the canal, which is not quite the same, but it's kind of similar. But it was pretty cool.
Yep, I'd be cool with that.
That's sweet. Yeah.
I just imagine give you a little bit sickness, no? the moving the whole day.
It was okay. It was kind of like permanently moored, so it was quite fine. But I did like the idea of, you know, maybe it's a way to avoid paying invoices. You know, it's like, well, that's not our address anymore.
Yeah.
Different tax bracket in the open sea.
Oh, sorry, change it. International waters.
Yeah.
And avoid taxes as well. You can move
Yeah,
around.
right.
There is I can see only win-win in there, James.
So what's what's the story with Gunner? Like, how did you guys set up? Because you were saying that, you know, one of you worked on the West Coast, one of you worked on the East Coast, but what made you like want to set up a studio together and move to Detroit? So I know you guys are from Detroit originally, I think you mentioned earlier. So what made you want to set up a studio together in Detroit? Was that always on the cards?
I think growing up here, you always wanted to find basically just wanted to make a studio that we wanted to work at from our hometown, so we could be around family. Basically, is family and friends, and just like the life that we grew up with. And Michigan's actually quite beautiful if you travel around, and the city has a lot to offer. It's a really cool unused place where, you know, like when I was in LA, it felt like kind of like I was borrowing time from LA.
LA is definitely used.
Yeah, like I didn't own any part of it, you know. It was like as soon as I moved, somebody else would move into my place, whether it was in line at Starbucks or my apartment. It was just like go, 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 go. And in Michigan, there's just this sense of like you can own a piece of this. The weather is like temperate and nice. I mean, the winters can be a little strong, but it's not any worse than New York. And you have some room to stretch your legs out. And I think we both kind of had similar thoughts. We wanted to learn from the major cities, but ultimately, I think we both had the agenda to kind of come home and try to take what we learned from there and try to do it at home.
Why is it called Gunner? I mean, was it influenced by RoboCop or what?
Everything for me is influenced by RoboCop.
Nick had the name because I remember. So we didn't like grow up with each other. Like we weren't like pre-friends before the Gunner started. Like I was on my way. I think Nick, I was moving to New York the next week, and we had a mutual friend go, "Oh, you guys got to meet each other." And Nick was moving back to Michigan, and we talked like at a bar, had some pizza, and it was just like, oh, we're on the exact same page, but I'm leaving. Goodbye. And so it was like this kind of like, that would be the perfect, that would be the perfect person to like do something in Detroit with. Because I think that was always in the back of our minds. Like, I want to start a cool studio in Detroit, you know? And then it was kind of like, but we just kind of stayed in touch over the 2 years that I was in New York. And it just kind of like, when little projects would come up, we'd like I'd be like, hey, you want to work on this? Or Nick would be like, hey, do you want to? So we could like book each other a little bit on different projects. We're both freelance. And then it just kind of like, each time we did that, something neat would come out of it because we both approach things differently. And like, this is cool. Like every time we work on a project, it's like really exciting for both of us. And so as that momentum carried, it just kind of, kept going. And then I started working on projects just out of my New York apartment after a while. And I was like, well, I don't think anyone will know if I just leave. so it's kind of just like,
I will say though, there was.
Do you know a guy called Ian? Ian? Yeah, I used to know a guy called Ian. He used to live here for a while.
Yeah, we get a lot of calls of like, hey, you're still in New York, aren't you? For Ian, he's like, no, I'm here in Michigan. They're like, oh, okay, well, let's talk over this brief. And it was like, yeah, all right, let's keep going with this. Just do this whole
you could fake it for a while, though. You could just like have like New York sound recordings in the background. Yeah, I'm still here. You know, yeah, exactly.
I wanted to touch on one point, which I think speaks to a lot of people. You meet a lot of creative people in the industry, and there's some people that you make an instant connection with. There's some that, like, you know, maybe you like Arnold and they like Redshift, and you just go your different ways. But there's something to be said about when you talk to somebody about an idea, and in their mind, they seem to have a very similar picture in their mind, and it can contribute to it. and it almost forms this like invisible bubble between you two because you're on such the same wavelength of something that you can talk about something that doesn't even exist. Those people are really kind of rare. And the night that I had pizza with Ian, it was like I would say something and then he would say something back like he was watching the same movie in his head. And we kept playing off each other. It was like, we got to be partners. That's it. That's who I've been looking for. And
did you like finish? Did like finish each other's sentences? Like, I'll have a pepperoni.
Yep. And then we just sucked into a black hole and disappeared into a void for a while.
Yeah, for 2 years.
yeah, for 2 years.
But all that to be said, that's when Nick brought up the name. He was like, I have this name, Gunner. And I was like, that's a cool name for a studio. And then it kind of like, we didn't talk about it for 2 years. And then I think when we were like, all right, let's start this thing up, the conversation was like, oh, are we going to actually call it Gunner? And then I think we had like a week of cold feet because we were like, I don't want it to be about guns because we're not really gun guys. But then there was the term like hired gun, and which was always used for like freelance. And so it's kind of like two freelancers coming together. We're like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like two freelancers, hired gun. That's kind of neat. And then there was
Dictionary.
The Urban Dictionary definition kind of.
Is the connection going?
Am I going?
Oh.
I don't know.
Maybe it's my computer.
Sorry. Yeah, the Urban Dictionary definition of gunner kind of sold us on the whole thing because it's
Is it filthy?
No, it's not. It's not filthy. That was what was so funny. It's actually
someone is really competitive, no?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
it's changed a little over time.
There's like a section of it that you're like, I'm not that. But then if you're really honest with yourself, you're like, I kind of am that.
Yeah.
I think it was a gunner will compromise his or her peer relationships, a reputation among peers in order to gain recognition or praise from their superiors. And we're like, oh my God, it's a client job. It's exactly
that's exactly what it is.
Like, I'm like, sorry, babe, I can't come to dinner. I got to finish this client project. I'm like, why am I trying to impress this random client? And so we're like, at the time, it was like, well, you know what? This is the most honest version of our personalities. Whether or not we love that about ourselves, it's honest. And that was that was a huge part of our starting a business together, because we didn't have like a lot of studio partners are like, oh, best friends for life. Like, we didn't have any of that. So it was very much like, don't screw me. You're not going to screw me, right? You're not going to do any, like, so it was just like, okay, blind trust. And so everything for the first couple of years was just trust. And so we built the whole studio on that model of just being as brutally honest as we possibly could with each other, even when it's really awkward and whatever. Just honest to a good place.
I used to have a business consulting. He used to say, because before we call cookie, we used to call cake, and I used to have a business partner. I just met him once, introduced by a friend in a pub, and we rent a place, and then we decided to create cake. And later we got a business, not a business partner, but business consulting, and he said, we need to do a contract. We need to go on the pub, get peace. And imagine the worst situation. If he fucks your wife, what would happen for the company? And that was so you guys need to know what is going to happen if anything happens. And we put all in the contract and we're in the same page. I said, I don't know if I want to have a business with someone.
Our insurance guy basically went over all the scenarios. I don't think he covered that one, but I think he got pretty graphic. It was like, let's say you're both in an elevator and it starts to close and Ian falls, and then the elevator starts to lower down and cuts him in half. What are you gonna do?
Yo, wait, say the After Effects project.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna drag you over here and put your password in.
But so you guys pretty much start quite organic. The way you guys start you guys start working together more like freelancing together in the projects between you two, and start just growing as a company until you guys decide, the next move would be, start a studio together and build something.
Yeah, it's been very slow, but just kind of natural growth.
Yeah.
So where do you see Gunner in, say, like 5 or 6 years time? Like, what are your, obviously not too much detail, but what are your plans, kind of thing? I mean, do you want it to grow, or do you want to keep it at like a nice kind of family size?
We're talking about this all the time lately. I think we have a limit on staff numbers, and then we want to be able to like double in size freelance, but always there's a part of it that's like a really tight team, and the work that we do a lot of times, or when people come to us, it is quite goofy or fun or a little bit of humor to it, which is what we love doing. So we're afraid to get to a point where we have to take on a bunch of stuff that just to keep it open. So I don't know. It's a game, man, because we've watched all different studios do all different things, and so at some point you just have to decide what you want to do. And it's animation. Like the people that we have now won't be there forever, and so like it's I don't know. Nick, you got any?
Yeah, I think there's another bigger picture too that we've been talking about, where it's like we want to be able to have a bigger community of people that can do things, and a lot of times, sometimes that looks like expanding the one studio that's there. But since Detroit is such a wild west, it's like, well, why not establish a few different places that all have a very strong point of view, or a point of view for the people that were at Blends, on a certain topic, and so you can hone in on it. Because what happens is if we start to overstaff, you have to start making up for how much that costs by taking on more work. And when you take on more work, sometimes you start to water down your point of view because you're like, well, we need this because it'll keep the studio open.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance, I think.
It's like the tale as old as time for this industry and the studios that are involved. It's like the number one thing to always keep in check and balance. So we've just found success in saying, like, if we really want to get into a different type of the industry, well, why not like raise and cultivate like a whole culture and studio around this other way of thinking, versus trying to adapt and bring it all into the same place where everything starts to just round off and become pointless, almost in a way opposite of rounding off.
But it's too many compromises, I guess.
Yeah.
So we did start a second studio, and it's now growing on its own, and they're on a totally different trajectory, and there's a little bit of creative competition now between them, and it's kind of interesting. And so once that started working, we were like, maybe it's not about bigger Gunner. Maybe it's about like finding people that are really passionate about something and like helping them get the right clients in and helping them start something. Because like, I think if Nick and I go oversee, we're going to lose touch of like the industry. And we're going to lose touch of like what it's like to be and you lose touch of what it's like to be the artist. So I think for us, it's like, how can we start a bunch of different studios or a bunch of different places and make Detroit this place that has a bunch of really cool things, and each company has like something they really want to do, but like our day-to-day still remains like kind of being on the box a little bit and trying to just be a part of like the culture we created for ourselves. So I think that's the long-term plan is more stuff. You know, you meet people, you're like, oh my gosh, you like totally have this vision for this thing. Like, I think I just want to like help people do that here as much as we can now.
And that mostly comes from us growing up here, and that none of that was available. So it's like a weird internal win to have something like that built in a place that is totally ownable. You know, it's kind of difficult to do something like that in LA or New York, because you're jumping into a sea of sharks already, like that are already well fed. You're like, I can't. I just want to make fun stuff, and you're like, Detroit, you kind of get away from. You can avoid it. It's like hiding in the coral, kind of a thing. It's like, I don't know.
A bunch of clownfish is what Nick said.
A bunch of clownfish.
Project wise, what do you guys see? You guys has any ambition to jump in games, or like feature film or TV series, or you guys always want to focus what you guys doing at the moment?
I think Gunner to me is about just trying to make new visuals we haven't seen before. So it doesn't matter where they live at all. In my mind, it's like we had done a lot of illustration systems this year, which is something that we weren't planning on doing, but the projects came up and it became really interesting because you're like, oh, how do I make a ownable style? And like, there was a lot of work to try and like, as long as we're doing new things, I think that's what that keeps everyone there excited. It's very much a group of people that are like, oh, cool, we did that. I want to try something else. I want to try something else. I want to get in here. I want to get in there. It's like that's definitely the spirit of the company. So yeah, film would be cool. I mean, we always talk about like an opener of some kind would be fun to get our hands on.
Like we would love to work on like a A24 open, basically. That kind of thing that you just see all the time is just like a really neat thing. And like to add to what Ian was saying about new styles, it's not necessarily like, oh, let's get into Photoshop and start drawing things differently. It's like, let's change the ask from clients by going after different clients. As soon as you start to change what the boundaries of what you're supposed to work on, as soon as you change that, you start to change your style because that's what it requires to adapt and become a part of something new. So in a way, taking on different objectives starts to change up your style because you have to attack it differently. You have to think about things differently. And that a lot of times will dictate style more than using a different brush or a different shader or something like that. You change up the narrative from the client, you change up the narrative and the style regardless. If you're doing
I think whenever you're developing a style, the constraints are always quite appreciated in a way, and I think that helps a lot. Like actually there's a question on YouTube a minute ago from Guy who says, how do you guys build a style? Because all of your projects, you can tell from Gunner, there's definitely a line that runs through all your projects. You can tell it's from you guys. So how do you go about building your studio style? Is that something that's evolved organically and that's just what it is, kind of thing?
James, real quick, I gotta say that's like probably one of the best compliments we could ever get. That is like one of the number one things we could get from any sort of view of our portfolio is that we have an unidentifiable reason why it looks like us. And I think that's just paying attention to our point of view on things and our attitude. Because sometimes style isn't dictated by color and by shapes that are usually used over and over. It's just about the lens that you put everything through. If you're going about trying to emulate another project, well, you're borrowing someone else's lens and mixing it with the lens. But if you stay true to how you feel about things, and we all have topics discussed about projects and we all align on things, typically if we keep it going through that lens, it comes out like it came from us. And style can be determined a lot by what you have to solve for the client, what they're trying to like put into the world versus taking what they did and then turning it into something you just wanted to do. You really make the conversation into helping them, and all of a sudden you just almost naturally develop a style because of that.
So how do you deal with clients in that regard? Because a lot of the times the clients will come to you with a style in mind anyway. So how do you talk them out of like whatever style they, because at the end of the day, every studio does not want to emulate another studio's work, but a client will always come to you with a style they've seen on YouTube or wherever. Yeah, exactly. So how do you talk them out into your style?
I don't think we talk about.
I think we are not shy about being like, you guys have Golden Wolf all over your mood boards. I think you should
go work with them.
Like, we're not afraid to, like, to us, like, if you encourage the right people to come in through your door, your conversations will be a lot easier. If you almost feel like an uninvited guest in their house because they're coming to you because they have to, but they really wanted to work with Animate or Golden Wolf or anybody, then it's like the relationship is already off to a bad start. Yeah. So we're not shy about just being like, well, we're not the right fit.
Hey, Animate and Golden Wolf weren't available. What are you guys up to?
I think a lot of times Well, for start, like the way, like I said, talking about the studio, it started like naturally, right? Like it was slow. So like I say that's like a lot of our early clients didn't have a lot of money, and it was just Nick and I, so it didn't really matter. So like there was a natural, like we started building our work slowly through that lens without getting, like we weren't getting looked at by people who had budgets for a long time. And so like it took, you know, I think 3 to 4 years, and then there's a really large handful of artists in Detroit that inspired and pushed us. And so like we were all being influenced at once, kind of moving towards something, you know what I mean? So the style came out of us, I mean, being scrappy and being like, oh, can this guy help us? And, you know, there's a bunch of artists, James and Mike, Joel, and Marcus is on our staff, and like they all had these styles, and we're all in Detroit, we're all looking at the same thing. There's a lot of old signage, there's a lot of interesting, weird old murals. So like all that's kind of just getting pulled in through the lens of all these artists, and like you're just kind of like, oh, you'd be good at drawing, can you help us? And so like the scrappiness kind of just started forming a thing, and they're like, oh, it feels gunnery, which at first we're like, does that mean it's like crappy or too wacky? But then we would do like really clean projects like the Google Home stuff. And so like as that started to happen, I think it was just more like Nick said, like us just being true to like, hey, if you're gonna work with us, we're a small studio, we can do what we can do, this is what you're gonna get. Are you interested in that? Like if not, you probably don't want to engage us, and that's okay. And then being in Detroit, cheap rent, as soon as people say no, we're like, side projects. And so we just said side projects for the first few years. It was side projects all the time. And it still is. There's still always one going, at least 1, 2. I don't know. There's a couple on the desktop here.
And when you were saying, when I was asking about starting a studio in Detroit, I kind of wanted to say, well, because the rent's a lot cheaper.
That's a good amount of the reason too. It's like you don't have to worry about like paying the bill at the end of the day. You're like, we can just make some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Cost of living's a lot lower too. So like for us, Nick and I are able to take a hit a lot longer than most studio owners would want to do. I mean, like 3 years long. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't the worst. And thankfully our wives they're both producers in different places, and they kind of kept the bills floating for us. So I don't know. Yeah, good situation to like, we got to be really, really, really picky for a long time. And I think that stuck with it. And I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but like, if you can feel when you start talking about a job in the studio that like everyone knows in the back of their head that it's a really bad job, it's gonna kill everyone.
Oh yeah.
You can feel that burn. And it's just a conversation about even starting it. And we noticed like us being like, you know, like in charge of what we take on and take off. The minute we were like, no, we're not gonna do that. It's gonna kill everyone. Like you could feel the whole room like, Yeah. And so like you want to keep doing that as much as you can, and you want to like keep that openness with the staff. And I think that's helped us pick projects. You know,
that are our vibe or
that are ours.
I think just having you know, talking about location and like cheap rent, I think that is help you guys as well, you know, take a little bit out of the shoulder, you know, so you guys can concentrate more on the creative without worrying, you know, you need to get the next job to pay the bills. No, that do you think this is something not recommend, but you guys think it is really important how you guys grow as well?
And I guess, what do you mean exactly?
I mean, like you guys having the opportunity, you know, you guys being in Detroit, you know, the bills being, you know, you don't have a lot of overheads, you know, like on the studio. Like if you had the studio in New York, you need to force yourself always getting the next job, no matter what it is, if you guys feel right or not, you know, but you need to pay the bills, the stuff costs more. You know, you guys having the opportunity to be in your hometown, you know, the rent's being cheaper, so you could concentrate more on the creative and the path you guys could take, you know, like I think if was in a different places like LA or New York, you guys may need to take a different approach when the jobs came.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. We wouldn't have been, especially in the beginning, I don't think we would have been as good at saying, nah. So it definitely helped us. But, you know, once you get a certain staff size, you know, there's the responsibility to keep that running. And I think that's become like the new you know, that's a priority now. That it wasn't like, if it was just Nick and I, it's like, well, if this all falls apart, it falls apart. We said that for like a year and a half.
We still kind of say that. But also, we say it to everybody too. Like, well, we'll just all go remote freelance. Like, okay.
So, yeah, I think with that in mind, it's easier to. We had a moment, you know, 2 years in, where we almost closed down. And like, I don't know if you've had those experiences, but they're interesting to get to that point where you're like, we've got no money left in the bank account. What do you want to do? Like, how long do you want to push on this? And we wrote out of a couple of those, and you learn the lesson of like, that's why I'm supposed to get a line of credit. That makes more sense, because you didn't have that when the bank account's just like.
Yeah, I think for me, I think when I don't know, coming from more the creative side, like you guys, you know, and you decide to build a studio, so many things you don't realize, you know, like you want to concentrate more in doing a good work, but it's so much more of the back end as well. You need to deal, you know, like what happens if you don't have money to pay people, you know, if the jobs you're expecting to come doesn't come, how are you gonna deal there? And you needed to.
Well, you rent a studio on a boat, don't you?
Yeah, and then you keep moving. Don't pay tax.
Sail off.
But I feel, I don't know, it's a lot of friends sometimes come and ask, you know, and say, I want to open a studio. It's a lot easier opening a studio. Said, you know, my main question is always why you want to open a studio. You know, just because you want to be a director and do your own work. So maybe you're better off to work for someone, you know, and directing in a bigger company where you can concentrate just more on the job. You don't need to worry about the people and the financial. But took me a long time, you know, in the beginning to try and understand these things. And I think always a little bit hard when you come from the creative side, you know, you don't have the business mentality so much, and you learn on the job. And it's like you say, you know, ooh, we didn't get a job, or it's like a month without any decent work come, how we gonna do it? And a miracle always seems to happen, you know, and it comes that job, you just relax a little bit. But it's always tricky, I think, learning the back end of the business. I don't know how you guys feel that you guys always had a little bit more the business side mentality as well, or you just.
I think we're terrible businessmen.
Yeah. We're very honest with ourselves, I think. And I think we recognize where we're not very creative, and we recognize where we are very creative. And then you just start to realize that the world is full of people that like is just as passionate as I am about rendering and modeling and UV mapping. There's someone out there that's just taxes and doing forecasting financials and stuff like that. So it's like you can either try to
nice Excel.
Yeah, it's you could either force yourself to learn something that you're not inherently interested in, which you only bring a little bit of effort to when you're not that interested in, or you get the people that actually really are. And we found nothing but success with being like, you know what, we can admit that we don't know how to do something. Let's hire someone that we trust that does, and then they can bring their end, and we can supply. We can just think about creative now versus, you know, we have our hand in it, but it's not someone that's like crunching the numbers. We have an EP that floats between the two studios, or CPA. Sorry, CPA. Oh, I get my acronyms mixed up. CFO.
Chief Financial Officer. UFO.
CFO.
Sorry, Ben.
Chief Flying Object.
every like producer that's been involved, and Brandon's been on for a really long time, like they have, like Brandon loves writing really, really, really good emails. Not something I think Nick and I are really loving doing. So like when he came in, it was like he's kind of got this like comedic quality to him, and we're like, yeah, just make all of them funny. It's totally fine. Like that's good. Like you're already good at that. Your texts that you're texting us are funny, so just do that with the clients. And
say it with a meme.
Yeah, that works really well for like, like gives everyone like the ability to use their skill that they're bringing to the table. And then, Nick and I can kind of stay more in the like getting really excited about stuff that no one else cares about. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
So this kind of leads on to one of our other questions, where like if you could go back in time and talk to yourselves when you were starting at the studio, what do you wish you would be able to tell yourselves, like what to look out for?
Back to when we started the studio?
Yeah, so if you were starting the studio again, what kind of piece of knowledge do you wish you'd have known from the start?
Man, I gotta say, we did a lot of shit. I don't know. I think we did a lot of shit right somehow. But we made sure that we went after it for the right reasons. We made sure that there was trust. Me and Ian had already spent a lot of time in the industry, and we've seen a lot of people try and start. We've seen a lot of studios start and fail. We've heard a lot of reasons they did. We've heard a lot of reasons why they succeeded. We worked at a lot of studios and found like the differences between a good, healthy studio and a bad studio. And it's like, man, when we not another pun intended, but when we pulled the trigger, I think that we pulled it because this is the most association with guns we've ever had with the name. I think we really knew for certainty that we wanted to go down this path, and we've I think because of that solidarity, it's been hard to describe what I would say if we went back to this.
I think I'd say, if this works, what do you want to do after that? Because I don't think that was a question in our minds. I don't want to say we didn't think it would ever work. There wasn't that, but we're not the kind of people that come into something like, no matter what happens, we're going to do this. We're just like, hope this works. Here we go. And I think some of like, now that with like more staff and like the question of like, how big do you guys want to get? Like, that's the stuff we're kind of really asking ourselves, and we're asking our staff all the time. It's like, what do you guys want out of this? Like, and just kind of like starting to think about like, what do we become? Like, being a studio that's starting to do cool work is like it was really flattering when we like my sonographer post. You're like, oh wow, this is amazing. Like that we have any notoriety, because we feel like we're operating like a child's tree fort game half the time. And so like once it became more legitimized, we don't have like all the answers as far as like what's next. Like, I think I would tell myself to like think about 25 years into the future, not 10. And,
it's figuring out what the end game is. Because I suspect when a large number of people in the creative industry set up a company, it's like you just want to make cool stuff, and that's perfectly fine. But normally when you set up a company, you have to have some kind of end game, be it sell to a larger company or whatever. But it seems like a large number of studios in the creative and what we do are basically personalities. So if it sells to like WPP or someone like that, then the people who set it up will eventually leave, and because they leave, the studio is not what it used to be. So it's kind of like figuring out what you want out of it. It's quite a tricky thing, especially since I'm not particularly business minded.
Yeah, and also
I just want a barbecue, man. I just want a barbecue.
But it's the same, like what we've been talking with Mike with Man's Machine.
That's what made me think of it.
Yeah, one of the studio that they sold part of the studio, and I think a lot of the people when they start the studio, they never had that mentality business-wise to think in the future. Oh, I could sell the studio one day. I could retire, and it's funny to think as well because let's say motion graphic animation wise is quite a young industry. You know, we didn't see like cycles, you know, of 3 generation of motion graphics. People retire or so business, you know, and we all like gonna call young, so I can feel a little bit more young. But it's we don't have the full cycle there, you know. We didn't see people we still seeing like school studios, like old school studios, them still going, you know. And from
what's an old school motion graphics studio is what, 15 years old?
Yeah.
No, even man. If you think Lobo in Brazil, I think they're about 26 years.
Oh, really? 26?
Yeah. So, you know, they're still going. If you think Lobo, MK12, or all these studios, you know, they're probably going like for 25, 26
I thought they were mid 2000s, but then my knowledge is incorrect, I guess.
No, I think Lobo is from, I don't know, 2000 or 1998. MK12
wow.
Pro is the same time, you know, because come from the Berlin group, you know.
It was kind of the first revolution of like software becoming accessible through a desktop, you know, rather than, you know, your £250,000 Avid suite or whatever it was back then, or Quantel EQ, you know.
That's when things were like really accessible. Like,
yeah, that's right.
Like a copy folder accessible.
I remember like a number of studios just spending a huge amount of money on like a Quantel EQ, for example, where it was basically just client porn. So they could just come in and go, oh, wow, that's nice.
It's like a flame. Like a flame.
Yeah, exactly, like a flame suite.
Like, hey, we got a flame suite. You're like, oh, cool. And you're like, what do you do? Like stuff you can do in After Effects. You're like,
yo, I got Sauna.
Cool.
Yeah. This thing's always cooking out renders, man.
That's right.
Yeah. We Nick and I both came from that world of like clients in the room with you, and like I don't know if you guys started in that space, but I think we started in the more like traditional old school advertising. Like you're in a room and the clients come in, you got your monitor and you're putting text up and they're nudging it around, and like it wasn't until we worked at other studios that you're like, oh, there's like the idea of a pit was not something I knew existed until I went to New York. It's kind of funny to think about, which would have been like, I didn't know what a pit was in like 2012. That's crazy. But Detroit has this kind of old advertising background, and so every studio is operating a little bit more in that flame territory or colorist territory, and more like edit suites.
So are there many other like kind of like animation studios in Detroit? You mentioned there's old school agencies, but are there many other, you know, kind of young, fresh studios in a way?
Yeah, there's a few now. Lunar North, good friends there. Similar story, you know. I think they started a little bit before us. Yeah, House. Yeah.
Yankee Peddler. We get like weird news of people moving here. Like, I don't know if you guys know, but Grayscale Gorilla lives in Milford, Michigan, and he like comes to our Christmas parties.
Like really... I knew he was in Michigan, but I didn't realize how.
Well, yeah, he said he was always in Chicago, and then we're at like we throw a big Christmas party every year, and like all the coffee shops and bars in our area come to it, and it's like a little community Christmas extravaganza, which is really cute. But like I think the first or second time we threw it, I was like, is that Nick Campbell? We were so confused.
Wait there, let's ask him an after Cinema 4D question to see what happens.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh, yeah.
You have to pay first.
He's like, I live like 30 minutes from here. And we're like, oh, weird. Okay, cool. Yeah, Michigan. All right. And I don't know. It's been kind of like, there's a lot of people, also like my experience freelancing too, is you'd run into a lot of people that were from here and had left. So it's kind of a funny, something, a couple clients are always like, there's something in the water over there. So.
Lead.
At least it's not flint.
We're all born and raised on lead.
Yeah, just kept us stupid enough to be creative. It's fine.
Talk about projects. What is your favorite project and your worst nightmare, if you guys wanna say?
Wow.
Man, We have a lot of favorite ones. It's really like, what mood are you in? And that can determine a favorite project. I think the ones that we all jump in on and we all like weirdly have like a big role in the overall voice is at least some of my favorite projects.
I was just gonna say, it's like the favorites have always been the moment where no one's like, a lot of times with the studio, everyone gets paired up and they go on little islands and they're all working like, oh, this group's working on that, this group's working on that. And then those projects die, or like, you know, they get finished and then you switch groups and everyone kind of, oh, you're working on this, you're working on that. The projects where it's like slowly the whole studio starts working on it at exactly the same time, and the one room of 10 people is all working on the same thing. There's a massive amount of energy in the room at that point.
Is it like Captain Planet where they combine all their rings?
Yeah, it feels like that.
Yeah.
Blend was the last one for us like that, where it's like everyone in the whole room working on the same project at the same time. And so if you get up from your desk and you go around, there's a bit and a piece to every little thing, and you know, everyone's just getting amped all day, and that's always a really refresh. I don't know. Yeah. So we always talk about do another one where we're all on it together.
And like there's not a particular like worst project, but they all do share a common thread, which is like a very muddy brief with just like just make it cool, but there's no like understanding of what it is and what it should be.
But not that
it's something more like I saw yesterday, and you're like, well, we're already like 2 months into the project, so I think it's just like, I would say the best projects we have is when there's like an interesting challenge to meet, and there's like a clear foundation to it that you could rest on and make creative decisions based on it. And the ones that don't have that foundation just end up being like a very frustrating conversation, because there is no foundation to rest anything on. There's no like, well, we chose this color because it actually really feels like this. When if this is gone, you'd be like, well, it could be blue, it could be orange, it could be green, it could be yellow, it could be purple, it could be this. And that conversation could happen up into the day that it's due, because there's no concrete foundation of an idea. I think like typically those like whoa, I heard it go there. Those kind of manifest into like anthem videos sometimes can get a little like that, because it's just like, we don't know what it wants to be. It could just be anything. Just make it cool. I think those are the times.
I think we struggle with just make it cool.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, anything's cool.
I think it ties into what I was saying earlier. Like sometimes you need the constraints and you get a better creative because of the constraints. Like having an open brief is not necessarily the best brief.
I think we've learned now to like give ourselves really strict guidelines if it is an open brief. Like we have to make them up for ourselves, or else we can't. It's really hard for us to like just do anything. It's like, okay, just let's start making a box. Let's start making a constraint.
James, it's kind of like you're like, oh, just do anything. You're like, well, I'm just gonna go outside and barbecue.
Exactly. So all right, I get to invoice for this, right? Okay.
Yeah. I'm just gonna lay face first on the floor.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's what I want to do right now.
Yeah.
There's a question on YouTube from Nick Milligan. Says of your favorites that you were talking about. Is that something you guys get to work on often, or is there, you know, your projects you kind of do for the money but don't show people as well? Because I think every studio has that to some degree.
Yeah, it's a constant balancing act, I think. And when we have projects that are like wealthy in budget and not so wealthy in creativity, you know, we definitely talk it over with the team before we say go on that, because it can be pretty draining. And there's always the temptation to keep taking on jobs that are financially wealthy. But if there isn't two out of, we try to judge a lot of jobs based out of having 2 wins out of 3. It's creativity, time, and budget. And it's like, if you have 2 of these, you're good. If you only have 1 though,
run.
It's one, yeah, if it's 1, then run for sure. Because if it's like really creatively wealthy, but there's no budget and there's no time, then it's exhausting.
You're just killing the team, yeah.
Yeah, if the budget's really good, but there's no time and the creative is bad, same result. Typically, we try to gravitate towards getting 2 wins out of that. It's pretty rare that we get all 3, but there has been 1 or 2 times that we have. Did that answer the question? I trail off and then I forget the last 5 minutes, and that happens all the time for me.
Wait, sorry, what was that?
Did I answer that question?
Yeah, I think you did. There's something about being high. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Talking about like the tree, whatever we want to call we call the tree R here. But it's like, do you think sometime worth, if you have, the time, like you have the money and it's a really wealth, but you're gonna drain a little bit the team, but then you can take a little bit of the time of the team and invest that money on a personal project as well, where you can get all the creative and all back there, so you create a balance in, let's say, in a long run instead of just one project. You're gonna make that money, it's gonna be good financially for the studio, but you're gonna drain the team, you're not gonna use their work, but that you can get that money, invest on the studio and say, all right guys, we're gonna suffer, let's say we're gonna suffer, drain a little bit the team for this project, but that we have that project on the back end we want to do for a long time, and we couldn't do because of financial, and now that is going to support the job. So you end up like getting one really good job, one bad job, but with the money, and you put that together and make one.
I really think we try not to do that. I feel like that job will just drain too much. There won't be the energy to do the thing that you're even excited about after that project. You won't want it. So like our rule getting work has been, we'll accept good work and great work. Great work doesn't necessarily have to come with a price tag, but it's like great work and we want to work on it. And good work is like, it's good work, it's a good job, but always say no to bad work because it kills us. Yeah. And I think that we've really tried to stick with that. And we've had a couple jobs come in and the budgets have been really good. And we just have had to say like, I can't. You think that will lead to that, but I don't think it does. Because I think by the time you've killed everyone, including yourself on that job, there isn't the energy to do the thing that you're excited about. Where you could have taken a job that was like, yeah, it's not the coolest project in the world, but the clients are nice and it's pretty good, and we're still working as a team, and like it's a good job. Like that to me is like, I don't want to go further into where it becomes a toxic job.
Yeah,
I don't know. We try really hard to keep it that way.
What if you farm it out to non-preferential freelancers?
No, because I don't know. Then their experience with us is not good. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Then it's just not. It's not worth growing at that point.
Like we used to be freelancers. We know freelancers talk to each other, and it's like, if you're a shitty studio, even secretly a shitty studio, it's like,
yeah, you get listed, man. Get listed.
Yeah. You just did one bad job for ruining their reputation.
Yeah. I think so, because it's like, I worked at Gunner. Oh, I really like that studio. It was a shit project, and it lasted for 6 months. And you're like,
Gunner, you mean bummer?
Yeah. That's a joke.
So I mean, but we've had, of course, we've had jobs start off like, this is gonna be cool, right? And then, oh my god, didn't expect that. But we try.
Sometimes it's out of your control, though.
Yeah, and it's a learning curve as well. In the end of the day, You never.
We're all still learning.
Yeah.
I think we just because we work in the pit with everybody, we just have our finger on that pulse a little bit more, because it's like, well, it's our ass too if we have to like take on some cryptocurrency explainer video that's 7 minutes long. It's like.
Yeah, you could feel us draining right now, just that brief. A cryptocurrency explainer that's 7 minutes. We all just started going.
I don't know, with cryptocurrency, I don't think anybody really understands this. And if somebody says they understand it, fucking bullshit.
That's like a blockchain video for me. I'm like,
okay.
I stop at asynchronous when they say that. I'm like,
I just feel it's just lots of buzzwords, man. Just lots of buzzwords.
yeah.
Actually, this leads on to another question, which was, who would you most like to work with but haven't worked with yet? Other than Thiago, of course.
Yeah, now that we met you guys, like, why don't you just let's just turn this into a client call.
Exactly. That was the whole plan of this whole setup, to be honest.
nice.
Right. So we have shot 1, 2, and 3 that needs some work, and I think like the weirder we start to get a little bit more interested in people that are like really going down this like bizarre path and have taken total ownership of it. We've always joked about like Greg Sharp would be really fun to have around. Nicholas Menard, we always wanted to have him in just to like see how weird he is, but it turns out he's super normal. We met him at Blend.
He's a nice dude. He did a See No Evil talk as well. He's a really nice dude.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh man, he's just like, yeah, if I'm coming to Detroit in the winter, we should all go snowboarding. I'm just like, your art does not look like a snowboarder made it. It looks like some like higher being.
I would love to see him do a snowboarding video though, like a snowboard-based animation, because you can imagine how arty snowboarding would become.
I know exactly how it would look. It would just be like, and a rail would come
it's like,
but there's so many people that were super interested.
But not just people, but also
clients,
companies as well. Yeah.
I think we're usually even more interested in people, just because it just ups our creative level, which helps us go to clients. Clients-wise,
did we have a client like Dreamlist or something? I don't remember.
We shoot kind of weird and high. We're like NASA.
Man.
Like who knows? What else do we have? We have a lot of weird ones.
Let's see. They were just all off the beaten.
Like we've always wanted to make like a local TV commercial that runs for like 30 years. Studio opens, we would love to just have that like little nugget of animation that plays before a Wes Anderson film. Like why not? Like
that'd be cool.
That'd be so cool.
Like a TV channel opener for like not local TV. What's it called? Like public broadcast.
Yeah, but one that like they never ever redo it. They just keep playing the same one for forever. Like I would love, like to be a part of nostalgia. Like, oh, this is such a great little thing. Like
the thing is, something like that would probably like outlive all of us as well. Like in like 70 years time, it would still be played. Like really low res.
Whoever did the 1-800
commercial.
Carpet, 1-800 Carpet in Michigan is like this recycled commercial from 2002. It's still playing.
Oh man! On a similar note, something that I would love to do, I would love to design the terrible pattern on public transport buses, because I know that's gonna live forever. That will live forever.
Yep.
And it's gonna get so much shit,
Yo,
yeah,
it's gonna get so much ass.
Yeah, sure. All the best parts.
I think stuff in that long-term space is probably super interesting to us, because it feels like so much of the time we're making like potato chips for people, it's like consumed and it's gone, it's consumed and it's gone, it's consumed and it's gone, and you put all this love into it, it just kind of disappears, which is totally fine, because for us it's just about moving on to the next thing anyways. But to have something that you're like, oh man, they're still playing our carpet commercial from 2020. It's 2035 now. They're still playing that. Like that would be pretty fun.
It's so blurry now that everything's in 16K. I can't even look at this 1920 by 1080.
That's the weird thing about this industry. Like everyone is an artist in their own right, and you put so much. I don't know. You put so much love into, or not necessarily love, depending on who the client is, but so much into each project to sell, like toilet paper or whatever. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. Like when you take a step back and go, I'm just selling toilet paper.
It's
right. It is the toilet paper, no?
Yeah. It's somewhere between irony and masochism. It's like you want to like torture yourself by just you just know the end result is just like this one little thing. But
And
for
nobody
some
else
reason,
cares. Like outside of our industry, nobody
like,
else.
we all know
really
it. We all
cares.
know it doesn't care. But yet you just stay up all night until every little thing is perfect. Every night, your friends all join you and all do the same thing, and we all know that it's going to just be a potato chip at the end of the day. But there's something weirdly satisfying about that process, and I don't know what it is.
I mean, potato chips are satisfying.
Yeah,
that is true. That is true. I mean, maybe potato chips is a bad example because they're goddamn delicious.
Yeah, the problem is as well. That's why we always get abused. No, we always get clients abuse us because we do for the love as well. No? They know we really care. No,
they exploit us. It's like,
Yeah.
you like our potato chips, don't you? How much do you like our potato chips? Yeah, that's right.
We'll do it for free. Yeah, that's right. We'll give you a free bag.
Oh, I want to make that flavor so bad. I'll just do it for free.
God damn you, Feo.
Yeah, we did a Pringles one, and we got quite a few free Pringles in the end.
So that's cool. The best swag we ever got was we did a project for Fender, and they sent the whole studio of guitars.
Wow, that's good.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good.
That was so cool. It's like Christmas every other day. There'd be like a new package at the door, like, whose guitar is it? Yeah.
Wow, you're quite lucky. Last time I did what we did a Samsung. They sent us like I think 4 or 5 Samsung phones. 3 months later, they email ask, "Where is the phones?" We said,
eBay,
using and everything, and they just ask back. They go out the phone back. We have the same with North Face. They sent a jacket. It was really nice jacket, and they sent.
You had to send it back.
Man, that's stingy. That is stingy.
They said it was the only one they had. I said, all right.
Oh, that makes sense.
But the phone wasn't. But it seems like Samsung don't let you stay with anything. So it's quite horrible, you know.
Jay from Giant Ant was telling us we actually had a pretty good conversation about these kinds of things where they sent them a prototype of I think it was like a soda can. But then it got put in the fridge on accident, and then they had a studio party, and someone had opened it. It was like, what the hell is this? It's all water, and like crinkled it up.
Oh no!
they got back to the client. I guess that was like the one and only prototype of that one can. Oh, I felt so bad for Jay. He has actually kind of a lot of those stories, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Sorry, typically we don't get.
Yeah, typically we don't get much. The guitars was like, "Are you kidding me? You'll actually do that?" And they actually followed through, surprisingly. But most of the time,
that's an awesome score. I mean, don't get me wrong, I can't play a single note, but that's an amazing score from a project.
Yeah,
that's
especially
unheard
on
of.
the eBay after.
Yeah. Recoup.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys one question. Are you guys talking about like the work projects you guys like to do? There is one subject I always love talking about is like pitching. You know, how you guys do much with the project? Do you guys pitch a lot? What you guys think about like the free pitch? How our industry take? You know, because it's going back to the subject sometimes being abused by clients, you know, like pitching a project where you have so many people. In UK, we have a massive problem. We don't get paid by pitch at all. You know, like when we pitch for America, some pitches we get paid. So it's a little bit, even if it's a symbolic, but make the clients takes a little bit more serious your pitch and at least look your pitch. You know, you're special if you're pitching. My last Channel 4 pitch here, they did the E4 stings and they pretty much ring everyone and
every studio.
And they didn't pay anyone for the pitch and basically just asking for free ideas and kept all the rights of the ideas after as well. So it's like
read those contracts.
Yeah, I think it's a bad subject to, you know, I always like talk because I think everyone has a different opinion on that. But do you guys pitch a lot? You guys?
No.
No.
I think we're in we're between two worlds a little bit with pitching. One is we're not really super into pitching because of a lot of those reasons. Two, we don't get asked to pitch a lot. So I don't know, sometimes we're just not in that conversation.
Is that from new clients as well?
Yeah, and I think the pitching thing is definitely more the agency model, and a lot of our work nowadays is direct to client, so it's a lot less of that. But sometimes it is like, they're bidding 3 studios, and can you send us at least a mood board or those things. If we do a pitch, we call it like a gunner pitch, and it's one idea. It's like, if you have us do this, this is how we'll do it. And that's take it or leave it. Because I think we just don't have the resources to throw 6 ideas at a thing. Right? We don't. We're too small.
Yeah.
So a lot of our pitches are just like, here's what you would get if you came to Gunner.
I think that's a good way forward, because I think it's, as a studio, it's kind of like wasting all your resources on something that, you've got like a 10 to 15% chance of winning. It's kind of ridiculous.
It's defeating at times too when you pitch and it just, we want someone else, or like, oh, we went back with our client that we already have on retainer. We're like, oh, okay. Why is it?
Yeah. I mean, I know that some companies put out a pitch, even though they have somebody in mind, to make it just come across as if they're being fair or whatever.
Yeah,
and
some
ridiculous.
companies has a lot of agents has the rule they need to put through 3 people. Even
they have a quota, don't they?
Yeah. That happens quite a lot. We normally tend to ask the question, if we favorite a studio, or if there is a favorite studio and they just want us to pitch, just to be part of the pitch, and that we didn't invest a lot of the time. But I think pitch is it's quite tricky, because like you guys said, Cookie is quite small as well. Every time we need to pitch, to put the resource that costs you money, even if it's internal, if you need to bring a freelance, but costs you money and it's not guaranteed, can cost you quite a lot of money.
Yeah, money and time.
Money and time, and
you totally remove yourself from anything you're working on, because it's usually something you have to turn around the next day, and you pour a lot into it, so it's very draining, just as far as like the day-to-day creative. But the funny thing is, I actually just had this moment a couple days ago where I was completely just found myself on the other side. We're trying to get a patio in the backyard, and we're like trying to decide between pavers or concrete. And I was talking to one of the contractors that came out, and I was looking at him. I was just like, yeah, all right, well, I kind of want to would you be able to draw your idea out? In the back of my head, I was like, I'll probably get 2 or 3 other contractors to do the same thing and see who's got the best idea. And I was like, you idiot! You're doing
one of them.
No. And I think that's pitching is almost a symptom of a client that doesn't necessarily have a point of view already on something. Maybe it's whether they don't understand their product as well as they thought, or they're out of ideas, or they're I think it's a symptom of saying, if I get a bunch of ideas displayed in front of me, it makes my job a lot easier. Yeah. Which is very easy. For me in my backyard, I'm just like, if I just had a bunch of drawings, I could just pick one that I like, and I don't even have to think about it.
It's offload responsibility.
Right, which I think can lead to a lot of very interesting results, but it's also very exhausting for studios. But I think it's a telltale sign of the client you're about to start working with once that relationship begins. And I think that mentality starts to trickle into the day-to-day, okay, hey, here's a color option. They're like, well, can we see 4? And you're like, damn, okay, here's 4. Yeah, you're like, can we see a blend of the 2? And you're like, oh boy.
I think if the animation industry was more like the live action industry, where you basically give them a mood board and a written treatment, then that would be so much better. Because to do a style frame, you do 90% of the job just to get those frigging frames across to be rejected. You're
going 3D.
It's too much. It's too much.
It's kind of in a way, all the animation studios kind of shooting each other in the foot a little bit.
Yeah, you have to
everyone
get
pitches.
solidarity. You have to get solidarity because
Yeah.
if we all do it together, fine. If one person goes, no, it's all right, I'll do style frames, and they get the bloody job.
Yeah. And plus, it's like if you do a style frame, you're like immediately taking their ideas and visualizing them. And if you do happen to make one where they're like, oh, that's exactly what was in my head, yeah, you can win the job that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, the chances
is more, yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of.
Also, if you're working with the client, when you involve the project, you're developing the project with the client, you understand what the client wants, you know, and what is the problem. When it's a pitch, you have that briefing there. You don't even have a situation when you sit with the client, try to understand the
There's
problem.
no collaboration.
No, it's no collaboration. So it's basically you putting a style frame that the client, oh, I didn't imagine like that. And you out, you know, it doesn't even give you a chance to collaborate with the client, try and understand and develop something together, you know.
Yeah,
so
I think some of our favorite jobs is when we get excited and the client gets excited at the same time, because we've all found ourselves on the same team trying to like accomplish the same goal. We've worked with like a handful of Google clients. Some in particular are just like so good about coming to us with a problem that they need to solve, versus, you know, like a style they're trying to achieve. It's like, hey, we really need people to like clearly see how this thing functions, but we needed to elevate the product as well. Is there a design language we could wrap around this that achieves both those goals? And we say, yeah, let's think on it. And we work really well together. And the end result is like, when it's done, it's done. It's not like it goes up another level and then someone else that has their own opinions sprinkles on that, and that just starts to fall down. And it just compounds.
Cool.
It's the vanilla ice relationship. If I've got a problem, I'll solve it.
Oh my God.
Well, I think that's a great way for we finish it.
On vanilla ice.
Oh, so we're hitting the 90 minutes. So I think do you want to run the last question?
You run it. It's your question. It's a good one.
So, what can I ask you guys?
I was just thinking about vanilla ice. Is that like milk ice? What is vanilla ice?
I think you'd have to ask Suge Knight. Like when he dangled him over the balcony, I'm sure a bit of vanilla ice came out.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference if sugar's involved, because if vanilla sugar is terrible.
This could be a very gross ice.
Damn.
Cool. So for the last question, just helping a lot of people that want to work with you guys. So what you guys looking for when you're looking for freelance or full-time? For people want to work with you guys, what you really looking when you're looking to show you know, what specific you guys looking when you're looking for new stuff, so people can know. So
I mean, I think Nick and I probably look. I think we look at different things. I can't say what I look for, Nick. I feel like you look for. It's kind of like when we both agree on someone, we're usually like, "Ooh, let's go after this person." But like,
there are definitely common threads. And there's definitely a different obstacle course for staff and for freelance. You know, if you were looking at the obstacle courses, they're all like foam blocks and stuff. The way scarier one would be to get on staff, not because it's scary. It's just like there's a lot more things you got to kind of like jump and dodge around and get over, and like things like, your work's great. Your design sensibilities are awesome, but you're like kind of rude, or you're like not, you like don't fit. Yeah, you don't like fit the vibe of the studio. Like we're all just like kind of relaxed, and we want to keep it that way, and we just want to tell jokes and make imagination like the biggest thing that keeps us all laughing and working on cool stuff. And if you're counter that, then like we don't care how good your work is. We don't care how slick your keyframes are. If the tune isn't there, if it doesn't match, then that's enough to disqualify you in a way. Mostly because we're so small that like our table's already full. So if we add another person, we're going to be like sitting on top of each other. So if we're going to put someone at the table, it's got to be, someone that fits our culture, the work aesthetic, the willingness to learn new things, and try new things out, and has like their own voice that they can bring to the table. Like if you emulate our style perfectly, it's like, well, that's cool, but like what's the new thing that we can like interject into our style from you that we can start to evolve into like our studio culture, is like why we're interested in like some like very bizarre out there artists and people that aren't even in the motion design industry. We pull in to work with us.
We do that quite a bit, where we find artists that are really inspiring, maybe just with like how they draw, and we'll pull them in to do like the first pass of style frames, but then we'll take that and we'll like turn it into like animation frames. And that's kind of a very like gunner way to do things. So you're just like,
I think that's a good way to work though. It's nice to have that outside influence. You don't want to be too insular.
The inspiration is like totally from another source. It's like you grab someone who's never heard of watching videos on Vimeo, and they're not going to make anything that you've seen on there. So like you're like, oh cool, like we can turn this back into that world. So I think like that's the more style frame style side of it. But and then as far as like people that we like to work with, I think it's always just like, if we have a conversation with someone and they're like the mind bubble forms, where it's like our ideas start to share this like special little thing, and there's like, when that starts to happen, I think that's the people who have become staff. As like they come in the room, they hang out for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden like they start to chime in on the goofy ideas, and you're like, they're like adding this whole extra flavor to like our banter that's like totally different. And
man, I like that you guys use the words banter. Like banter sounds like quite a British word. I'm glad that it's going across the pond. It's quite
banter. It's like the studio is kind of like a stew. If you add too much,
is it a studio?
Studio. Yeah, it's like you have to be really careful with like the ingredients that are in it. You can add new ingredients as long as it's not overpowering the whole studio, or it's like so. Staff in particular is a very particular choice for us. But on the opposite side, freelance is a completely different thing. That obstacle course is like, if you can climb a little bit, you're part of the club. Like you can hang out with us in freelance.
I guess you're not as committed as a freelancer in a way. It's like, like a month, 2 months or whatever. It's not like a complete long term.
It's very rare that we hire someone that we haven't already worked with. You know what I mean? You're like, you find people, I don't think we ever have. I mean, you find people just online, like you find cool work, you're like, oh, I really like your work, and you reach out to them, and half the time, like, or people send us reels, and we watch them all, and if like if a reel is really interesting, where it's like, oh man, like they don't draw like us, but like the way they're making stuff moves like that is really different. Like that would be really cool. And like you kind of like, and then you have a conversation, and we'll just chat with them like, hey, what do you know? What are you into? And then the right project will come up, and you pull those people in, and that's kind of always been the thing. It's like trying to find the next little ingredient that's like interesting and different. And
and on a micro level, like I think the things that we usually look for is like a very good sense of rhythm. There's just like there's just that feeling. It's so hard to describe. You can't write it down, whatever that is. You can just feel it in your guts when something is timed right. I think
do you mean in terms of animation, like animation rhythm? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I would say so. Nerdo just put out a reel. Me and Ian were gushing about it this morning about just how there's just like such a cool like sense of like rhythm and like the way things like flow back and forth to each other, and it's like with the music, it all has this like sensibility of timing. Like you could almost have like not that great of a design frame, but if it just moves in that right way, it can still evoke this like emotional response.
Or the opposite, the design frame is amazing, the animations, whatever. You're like, I don't know, it doesn't matter. We put them together.
So I think we definitely look for that sense of rhythm. I mean, it really depends on each job when we're picking a freelancer. Sometimes we'll have a job where like we just need a little bit of extra C4D muscle. So if you can kind of UV map and you can kind of render, welcome aboard. But it's all circumstantial. If you if you have like a very good design sense, or there's a certain sensibility that we're kind of trying to like put together as a team for a job, we'll end up reaching out to those people. Unfortunately, it doesn't leave room for just like, we're very selective according to the job we're on, so it doesn't leave room for just like a broad open, hey, anybody that wants to jump in, because our team is, again, very small, and the amount of projects we have is very small.
So if you're a generalist, it's quite tricky. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think we hire a lot of generalists. Actually, I think our studio is mostly generalists. I think when we freelance, that might be where we get like someone who's like unfamiliar with our world, or like more specialized, because it's like, oh, you're really good at this, and like this project is calling for it. And like, well, a lot of us are like, yeah, I'm a generalist, Nick's a generalist. I would say most of the staff is generalists. There's some specialty staff, but we're kind of like, everyone's trying different things.
So just everyone's like dipping into whatever to get a job done.
Pretty much. I don't know, Nick. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's a generalist with an ace. Everyone can kind of, everyone can touch into a lot of different programs, but there's like one particular thing they're like very, very good at. And like for Ian, I would say like his design sensibilities and his storytelling sensibilities, but then like he can jump into cinema and animate and render and do all these things. And for me, like I do like the more of the cinema, and try to get involved in like the storytelling. But like if it comes to designing, I'm just like, guys, I'm hurting this project if I try to anymore. So, and everybody has those different unique strengths, but everybody can help and jump in. Yeah. Everyone can score goals.
Yeah, so how you stack it together, isn't it? And that the tactical side of things that makes a great product.
Yeah, I think it's the people you can align with on being able to express feelings to them, and they understand those feelings and could put that back into animation. Those are the people that we continue to just keep working with, because it's like you're like, like you'll get on a call, or you'll be in the studio and you're like, and they're like, got it. And you just go and take it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's all like just coming from you, and it just gets absorbed and then off to the races. Or they'll look at something you're working on, they're like, it feels a little, and you're like, got it. And you back in, and like that ability to not really have to talk, but to just like express energy.
That's the best. Like when you're working on a project and like something's not quite right, but you can't quite put your finger on it, and then one of your work colleagues passed by. Oh, have you tried this? And it's like, oh yeah, now this sings. Now that it works. I think that's one of the best feelings. I think. It's like as a collaborative, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's understanding each other without much. It's hard. Like it's funny. Like in the studio, sometimes when we discuss about animation and the producers involved there, and we just you can just do it, and it makes sounds, and the other one gets straight away, and the producer, all right, can you guys translate what we're gonna do?
What do you want me to tell the client? Ba-ba-da-boo.
Bada bing.
No idea. You have no idea how many parts of our animations have been like dictated by how a fart sound sounds. Like,
man,
right?
I can't remember who did it, but there was an amazing VFX showreel that was called, and it was basically these two guys on like a green screen background just making all these sound effect noises, and that's what the showreel was, and it was amazing.
Oh man, I actually really remember that one too. I don't know who it was though.
I'm sure I put it on Motionographer, but that was a long time ago. But I'm sure I did. Anyway, it was amazing.
You must find that, James, and we share.
I'll check it out.
Cool. So let's wrap up, guys. It's been over 1 hour and 43. So you guys.
Wow, this is getting into Scorsese territory.
Yeah, I think.
Now the character's on the decline for way too long.
But
you think his life's bad? It's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse.
Ian has a whole theory on Scorsese films that they all do that.
By like there's a certain point where you're like, I know it's gonna get worse. Just get to the end.
And they always need to get worse to get better, no?
They never get better.
They don't get better. Scorsese.
They go all the way to the bottom and they're like, done. You're like, oh,
yeah.
Great.
Oh, okay. Credits.
Yeah. Cool. Guys, thank you so much for your time and for all the inspiration insight you guys share with everyone. Was great talk to you guys.
Thanks for having us.
No, it was
Thanks
a
for coming
pleasure. Yeah, we have next show coming next Tuesday with Giant Ant.
Yep.
You
We're
guys-
gonna get some of those stories you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
What time so we can slack Jay the whole time he's on here?
yeah.
You can join our YouTube channel and join the chat room.
Perfect. We'll be there.
Bombard him.
Plug.
Make him talk about things he shouldn't.
Yeah, but it's going to be 8 p.m. British summertime next Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah, 8 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Jay is the best.
He's a sweetie.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys, and thank everyone to watch.
Thanks everyone for
We're
joining
gonna
us.
See you guys next Tuesday.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thanks for coming on.